It'll take ages to load now, isn't it? Awesome. Okay, so I think we are now live on Facebook, which is exciting. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Wellbeing Week. I'm Ruby. I am the VP Welfare and Diversity, and today I am joined by two members of staff from the Wellbeing team. So if you guys just want to sort of introduce yourselves and give a brief sort of summary of what the Wellbeing Services are at the university, that would be fab.
Okay, so I'll go first. My name's Kimberly. I'm a psychological wellbeing practitioner at the Wellbeing Centre. So my role is really working with students with quite a wide range of difficulties. So I'm one of the practitioners that you might speak to first at the Wellbeing Centre. And really my role is working with a sort of range of sort of mild to moderate difficulties, so perhaps sort of study related stress or anxiety, depression, sleep difficulties. And my training is, well, psychological wellbeing practitioners work with CBT or cognitive behavioural therapy. So I sit within the psychological therapies pathway within Wellbeing Services. So Wellbeing Services is like a really quite a large umbrella. So we have sort of psychological therapies, mental health, accessibility and welfare all under wellbeing. So I'll let Leslie talk through some of the other areas and her role.
Hello, my name is Leslie Jansen and I work in the mental health pathway in wellbeing. So we work with students experiencing mental health difficulties which have lasted a year or which are likely to last a year. So we're using the definition from the Equality Act and we provide support to those students. We also have an accessibility team and they support students with a range of physical disabilities, also specific learning difficulties like dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, autistic spectrum conditions. So yeah, they provide a wide range of services and support as well, sensory impairments as well, any long-term health conditions other than mental health conditions. And just to say a little bit more about myself, so yeah, I'm a mental health advisor. My background is as a mental health social worker, so that's the kind of perspective that I bring to the work. And I work within a team. We're all mental health professionals. Some of my team are occupational therapists, some are nurse trained, and then there are also some social workers other than myself.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So the next sort of couple of questions are going to be sort of posed to you as if it was a student asking. These are sort of created with some concerns that students have brought to us in mind. So yeah, imagine that I'm a student coming to you. Is there a cost for these wellbeing services?
No cost whatsoever. The service is entirely free.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question I've got here is, I'm really struggling with lockdown and isolation, which we know is a huge, huge theme for the last 12 months, really. Not just for students, but for everyone. So with regards to struggling with lockdown and isolation, what support can wellbeing offer for students?
So the short answer is there's loads of different support. So it sort of depends on both what you were struggling with and then what you'd be looking for in terms of that support. So the first thing we want to say is that we recognise how difficult it is for everybody, and particularly as a student, kind of what circumstances we're in. There is quite a lot of kind of specific support around COVID, both on our website and on the coronavirus web pages, the university web pages. This year, the university's gained access to a service called Together All, which is a kind of online support forum. So there's both sort of peer support available through that platform. It's confidential, so you create a sort of username and you can sort of make posts under that username. So you can choose to sort of connect with others in that way. Or if you were just looking for information and support and advice, the whole platform is monitored by professionals. There's a kind of series of courses and resources on there as well. There's self-assessment tools. So if you wanted to explore a bit more around your symptoms and get to understand them a bit more, that would be quite a good resource as well. That service, obviously, it's online, so it's 24/7, it's always there. You can ask sort of questions and further support to the platform, and you'll get an answer from a trained professional. We have got a kind of series of self-help booklets as well. The Wellbeing have sort of worked together with the Mood Disorder Centre, and they're all sort of COVID specific. So around things like getting back into a sort of normal routine, looking at sort of how to best keep a routine, how to manage worries, building on resilience as well. So there's various kind of booklets there. And with those booklets, there is the option to seek further advice from a wellbeing practitioner. So if you were, they're designed to be a sort of self-helpy tool, but if you need a bit of help or advice with them, you can sort of click through and your message will sort of come through to a member of staff at the Wellbeing Centre, and then we will reply back to you via email, I think it is. So there's those. Outside of that, there's also a service called Student Space. So that was put together by the charity Student Minds. Again, that's a sort of a 24/7 resource, and that's based around text messaging support. So that's obviously external to the Wellbeing Centre. That's something else that's available. From a practical point of view, we've got our welfare team, and they're there to support students. If you're sort of isolating, struggling to get things like food, those kind of practical needs, they're there to support, as well as the residence life team as well. So if you're in university accommodation, they can sort of look at what practical support and advice they can give you from their point of view. They have got quite a lot of virtual events happening as well. So for both sort of isolating and just sort of meeting others as well in your accommodations virtually, that's all on there as well. But I suppose the main thing to say is that just get in touch with us. We'll have a chat with you about all those options, what might be right for you, and yeah, most importantly, sort of getting that support set up really. So there's lots of stuff available, and essentially, if you're not sure, just come and speak to us, book an appointment, and we can talk through all of that with you then.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Leslie, do you have anything to add on top of that? I think you're muted, Leslie.
Sorry, my apologies. You'll find a lot of information on our web pages, I would say, as well. So there are all sorts of resources on there. Yeah, but please do get in touch, and we'll be happy to talk through the resources or the approach that would work best with you.
Brilliant, thank you so much. The next question I've got is the service confidential? Because I know this is a concern for a lot of students that have never sort of been in the therapy space before. They're sort of worried that this is that somehow it's gonna sort of tarnish them or something like that. Like, is this confidential?
Absolutely, it is, yes. So we take confidentiality very seriously. You can read our full confidentiality policy on our web pages. So the information that you pass to us will not be passed on to anyone else without your consent. We may ask you to complete one of our consent forms, and that's a space for you to indicate if you would be happy for us, for example, to liaise with other people on your behalf, who you would be happy for us to liaise with. And there are exceptions in the interests of immediate safety where we may need to break confidentiality, but we would always aim to talk to you about that first.
Brilliant, thank you. Kimberly, has Leslie covered everything, or have you got anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think she's covered that perfectly, really. And it is all on our website if anyone wanted to kind of read that full policy, but that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Brilliant. So the next question that I've got actually kind of links into one of our themes this week in Wellbeing Week. So I thought it'd be quite nice to ask you guys about it. So I'm worried about my housemate who is really depressed and is drinking a lot more. What can I do and what can you do to help support this situation?
Okay, so again, we've talked quite a lot about our web pages, but just to say that you will find advice for family and friends under the support tab on the website. So just a few things then to highlight. So Student Minds have got a campaign called Look After Your Mate, which aims to give more students the confidence and knowledge to support their friends whilst at university. And you can download the Look After Your Mate guide, which provides tips and information for supporting someone who's experiencing mental health difficulties. The Main Mind website also has some really good booklets on how to support someone experiencing a mental health difficulty. So that's worth having a look at as well. We would always try to encourage your friends to access support themselves. So a good idea might be to encourage them to make an appointment with the GP, or to contact us in Wellbeing, or to speak to their personal tutor, or if they're living in halls of residence, to reach out to the residence life team. But if it isn't possible, if they're not able to do that, please do contact us. You could contact Wellbeing and we could discuss the situation further with you. For advice on drug and alcohol use, there's a great resource called Together. And I understand you've got, I think, Together coming to give a Q&A presentation as part of your Wellbeing Week. So that's a resource really worth keeping in mind as well. And if you have more immediate concerns, we have a great service called First Response, which is an NHS phone line, and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you could phone that on your friend's behalf and they'd be able to give you some advice. I'm going to give you the telephone number, but it is on our website as well. So it's 0300 555 5000. And that's a free phone number. We'd also say make sure you look after yourself too. So, looking after, witnessing, supporting a friend going through a troubling time is also stressful and it's upsetting. And we're happy to offer confidential support and advice, which can help maybe to clarify your concerns and decide how best to take things forward. And also to remember Together All, which Kim referred to earlier. So that's available 24/7, and that might be something that you'd want to access, or your friend might want to access. It's a great resource.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Leslie. Kim, have you got anything more on that one?
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute. No, so I think Leslie's covered it all there. It's just, what is a little bit confusing is Together, that's the drug and alcohol service, and then Together All is a sort of more peer self-help thing. But I think it's really helpful you've got Together coming as sort of part of the week. So hopefully that will clear it up a bit.
Yeah, so we have Together, I think they're coming tomorrow, and they've got a couple of people who are coming to talk about their own experience with drugs and alcohol. So I think that will be a really, really valuable session. So if anyone is watching that wants to come along, then please do. So the next question is kind of more around, obviously at the moment we're doing this interview via Zoom and we are in a lockdown. So I just kind of wanted to ask you guys how appointments and how wellbeing services are functioning at the moment in the world of COVID and how that's working.
Yeah, so as much as possible, we are doing appointments virtually. So I think we're often giving the choice whether that would be a telephone call, whether that's more of a kind of video call, so such as Zoom or Teams. So we're sort of giving the option there. So where it is possible, we are doing everything sort of virtually for everyone's safety.
But you're still open, which is good.
Definitely, yeah, definitely still open, and we're finding we're working with it okay, and finding all the tips we need, you know, sending resources ahead and things like that. So it's working well.
Brilliant. So the next question is, we've covered it slightly, but what specialist services do you offer? Because obviously mental health and well-being is such a huge spectrum, as you've already sort of covered with both of your introductions to what you do. So what sort of specialist services can you offer for students?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as we've already said, we offer quite a broad range of support and services. So I'm just going to highlight a few of them. So, for example, we've got support for students with eating difficulties. There are eating difficulty support appointments, and there's no assessment or referral required for this. Students can book directly with the practitioner via our website. And there's also more information about eating difficulties and eating difficulties support on our web pages. We've also recently introduced a new service. So we're working with an organisation called Nilari, who can provide a telephone counselling service for students from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. Nilari are based in Bristol. And again, there's more details about this on our website. But students can contact them directly, either by email or by phone, to make those arrangements. But we're very excited about that. That's a very new thing. And then the team that I work within, the mental health pathway and the accessibility team, we can draw up individual learning plans for students with longer term and ongoing health conditions and disabilities, or dyslexia, dyspraxia, that sort of thing, autistic spectrum conditions. And students often ask me when we do that about whether anything will appear on their degree certificates, for example, about the adjustments which we've recommended. And I always reassure students that absolutely there will be no reference to it on their degree certificate. And when we contact their departments with the adjustments, again, there's no pressure whatsoever to have anything on the individual learning plan that gives any details about the specifics of the student's health condition. We can just list the adjustments. We also have a team of mentors who provide ongoing support through Disabled Students Allowance, and study skills advisors who can support students with specific learning difficulties. So that the mentoring is for students with ongoing mental health conditions, but also for students with autistic spectrum conditions. So just to say that there may be times when we might also signpost a student to specialist services outside the university, depending on this student's individual needs. So we work closely with the Student Health Centre and with local NHS mental health services. And we have an NHS community mental health team based alongside us on campus. And with the students' consent, we can liaise with these teams and other teams as well on the students' behalf.
Brilliant, thank you. That's amazing. And I just want to thank, so obviously Nilari is really exciting, and I just want to thank the group of students that sort of helped push that forward, because it was a group of BAME students that sort of met with wellbeing and voiced their concerns and their experiences. And so yeah, I just want to thank those students and then thank Wellbeing for responding to that, because I think this is a huge step forward. Yeah. Kim, have you got anything to add?
Nothing much to add. I know Leslie said we do work very closely with the NHS, and we can actually, for the TalkWork service, we can actually do, with the students' consent, we can actually refer directly in. So if you speak to us initially and you sort of require their services, you don't need to then make that step to refer. We can refer you directly in if that's kind of preferable to the student. So we've tried to sort of limit that impact on the individual of having to sort of come somewhere and think, oh, actually maybe that's not the right thing, and then have to go somewhere else. We've sort of taken out that step, so that's been really important this year as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because a lot of students have sort of fed back that if they get signposted, it kind of feels like they're being just like passed on, and making that extra step can be really difficult. So the fact that you can sort of refer directly is I think a really good thing that will help a lot of students. The next question is one that is very common, and it's a concern around waiting lists and waiting times, which is not just an issue here, it's an issue across like the whole of the country with mental health services. So the question is, I've heard that there are long waiting lists for everything and that I won't get help. Is it worth contacting you? I think there's a lot of press around really long waiting lists and never hearing back, and this can then feed into that fear that if you reach out you won't get help. So is it worth contacting you guys?
Yeah, it's definitely worth contacting us. So we'd always say the best way to contact us is by booking the telephone referral appointment. So that's the first step, really, where we chat with you about what you're experiencing, and therefore we think about, as we've talked about, there's so many different parts of the wellbeing team. So we're thinking about which areas of wellbeing are most appropriate, are NHS services appropriate, and that's where we can get all of that sort of support set up in a way. So those telephone referral appointments, they are available within 3 working days. So there should not be a long wait for one of those. If concerns are really urgent, it might be that booking what we call a duty appointment is more appropriate. So these are available each day on the day. So they can only be booked on the day. And those are for those more kind of urgent concerns, not emergency in the fact that you'd need 999, but urgent concerns. So those should be available. Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell, really. We can't obviously go into detail about every available support ever, but that's the best way to then discuss your concerns and then get on the right track with them.
Yeah, I think that's really good to know, that because obviously the idea of like being on a waiting list for months on end is not fun. So no, it can be really off-putting. So to hear that you'll get seen or get spoken to pretty quickly is hopefully really encouraging to a lot of students.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know you just briefly touched upon this, Kim, but if I had immediate welfare concerns that were sort of more urgent, can I contact Wellbeing, or what would be the most sort of appropriate route to getting that immediate welfare support?
So I think Leslie was going to speak this through.
I take over there. So if it's an immediate emergency, then we would always recommend to call 999. And we'd want to highlight as well that in the case of an overdose, it's really important that somebody seeks immediate medical help by calling 999, because sometimes people don't feel unwell initially, but it can be very, very serious, and sometimes the severity of the condition doesn't become apparent maybe for hours or even days. So we'd really want to emphasise that 999 in that sort of situation. But if someone needs urgent help, but it's not a medical emergency, it's not life-threatening, then there's several things that we'd recommend. So as Kim suggested, we do have some duty appointments each weekday throughout the year in Wellbeing, and they're bookable on the day by telephoning us. I think people have probably got our phone number, but it's 01392 724381. We've also touched on the first response NHS line already. That's a great resource to have, and students can access that if they're registered with an Exeter GP, even if they're currently away from Exeter. So that's really a service worth remembering. So I'll give the number again. It's 0300 555 5000. And if you ring that number, you'll get to speak with a mental health professional, and they'll be able to give advice on the best course of care. Also, we would encourage people to make an appointment with their GP, with their doctor. And GPs are often able to offer on-the-day appointments in more urgent situations. So if somebody's registered with the Student Health Centre, we'd encourage them to contact them. And also to keep in mind the A&E department of the local hospital. Wherever you are around the country, the A&E department will be able to assess your needs and provide you with treatment with the relevant health team. If you're on campus or in Exeter, the university's estate patrol team are really worth keeping in mind as well. So they can be contacted on 01392 723 999. And they're again available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they can cover all aspects of safety and welfare, as well as security. And I guess the other service we'd want to highlight is the moorings, which is a fantastic service we've now got available in Exeter, and that offers out of hours mental health support between 6 p.m. and midnight. You can email them or you can telephone their team for support. Their telephone number is 07990 790 920. And then I think at the moment they're encouraging people to call, but I think then there is the option to go and see them as well, but to call first. You'll also find lots of details about useful helpline numbers and other information under the urgent support tab on our web pages.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Leslie. Kim, have you got anything else on that question, or has that covered most of it?
Yeah, no, that's covered it. And I suppose it's worth thinking about what kind of urgent need it is and of those services, which was most appropriate at that time.
Brilliant. Okay, so I've actually got, this is the last question, and then I'm going to sort of just ask you guys if you have anything else that you want to add. But if you had sort of one tip that you would give to students who are struggling with isolation and loneliness at the moment, obviously that's the theme of today, what would that tip be? Sorry, it's quite a hard one, just to pick one.
Yeah, one tip. I think probably if I was only to pick one, to speak to somebody, whether that is family, friends, tutors, well-being, whoever it is, just to have a chat with somebody else. And from that you can sort of make a bit of a plan and think about what it is you can then do. Yeah, without reeling off lots of different things, if I could just pick one, I think that would be it.
Brilliant, thank you. And Leslie, what would yours be?
I think mine would be very similar. I think I'm always emphasising to students the importance of reaching out, letting somebody know how you're feeling. And I often say to students that to a large extent, I don't think it really matters who you tell. The important thing is to tell somebody how you're feeling. And you know, the university is a big, complex organisation, and if you decide to tell somebody within the university, it can be really hard to work out, do I tell my personal tutor? Do I tell wellbeing? Do I tell the person who's leading my seminar? And I think to a large extent it doesn't really matter, because if the person you tell doesn't feel that they're best placed to really take that forward with you, they will find somebody who is. So I think just letting somebody know is key. And I think the other thing I would really recommend at the moment is trying to put some structure into the day. So it doesn't help specifically with loneliness, but I think it can help to lift all of our moods a little bit. I think one of the challenges of lockdown is that our days don't have the structure that they'd normally have. We don't see the people we'd normally see. We don't go to the things we'd normally go to. So I think to try and put some structure around sleep and around meal times, and to try and make sure that the day has a variety of things in it. So there's some social time, even if that's remote social time, there's some relaxation time, and there's some work time and some fresh air, some exercise as well. I think all of those things can help to lift mood. There's lots of evidence that all of those things together can really help. And then in itself, that can also help the feelings of loneliness. I've kind of taken more than one there, I'm sorry, but there's my thoughts.
Quite all right. That's definitely allowed. I think they're all just completely valid and so useful. And I think mine would be the same. It would be just talk to someone, because quite often just the act of telling someone can be so freeing, and it won't even be that you need any further support, you just needed to tell someone. So, or even just to talk to someone about a TV show that you watched or something like that. Like, I think it's really important to stay connected at the moment, even if that is sort of virtually. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, guys. And then I just wanted to sort of like open it to you guys and see if there's any other things that you would want to mention, or anything that you've sort of found in terms of like trends that you've seen in the last couple of months or things like that. Like just sort of open it up to you guys and see if there's anything that you wanted to speak about to students. Sorry, it's very broad, I know.
I think I'd just like to say that I think that this lockdown is really hard. I think when the first lockdown happened in the spring, a lot of people said, thank goodness it's spring. Wouldn't this be hard on everyone's well-being if it was the middle of winter? And then lo and behold, we're going through it again in the very, darkest, coldest months. So I just want to sort of acknowledge that this is really hard. It is really hard on everybody's well-being. Yeah, if you are finding it hard, you are not alone. Absolutely not alone. It is a tricky time. But I think just to emphasize that there are increasingly a whole wealth of resources out there aimed at supporting well-being. And I think, I've been a social worker a very long time, and one of the positives I've seen is that people are talking so much more about well-being and mental health. And I think that's happened through the pandemic as well. It's really come to the forefront, and I hope that continues in a positive vein going forward. But yeah, it is hard, and I think this lockdown in particular is hard.
Yeah, completely agree there.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe just adding to that, and yeah, being aware that this is really difficult and everybody's struggling, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't reach out. We often get on these sort of initial phone calls, people saying, well, I know you must be really busy, or I know you're probably seeing people who are feeling much worse, but I've got this, and it always matters, and we don't sort of judge in that way of what's more important. We're just looking at, for you, what's the best next step, and what's the best kind of support for you. We're not worried about whether you think it's bad enough or not. It's just worth you speaking to us, and then we look at what's available, what's going to be helpful from that stage. So please don't worry about your concerns not being big enough, because they always are. There's always something we can look at and recommend.
Definitely. Thank you so much. That's all the questions that I have. I'm going to make sure, because this is recorded, so students can come back and watch it, but I'm also going to do a brief summary of what we've talked about and include all of the numbers and everything like that people can reach out to. I think this has been incredibly valuable, and I really appreciate you giving up your time to come and do this, because I know you must be very busy, so we're all very grateful.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much, and have a great week.
Yeah,
thank you.
Wellbeing Week goes well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.